All right. Two Bible verses that I want to touch down on, and that is in John chapter 5, we have the story of the man at the pool of Bethesda. Have you ever taken a look at that word Bethesda? It's really quite interesting. When you break it up, Bethesda says be the SDA. I thought that was really cool, Bethesda. But a man had been at this pool for 38 years, and he'd been suffering, and he was waiting for a miracle. Do we tell the people in the lobby to please come in if they're coming in, or close the door? Go ahead and close the door if they're not coming in. So this man is at the pool of Bethesda for 38 years, and he's looking for a miracle. And then one day a miracle walks by. His name is Jesus. And when Jesus saw him, he asked him a question. And I want you to think real carefully about this question, because he's asking you the same question right now. Are you ready for the question? This is what he asked the man. This is what he's asking you today. He said to them, when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, what's the question? Do you want to be made well? He's asking you today. Do you want to be made well? Now this man came up with a lot of excuses, didn't he? I can't get in the water to heal myself, and someone always gets in ahead of me. Where is his focus? On people. I can't do it. Somebody does it ahead of me. His focus is wrong. His focus needs to be Jesus. So the next thing that Jesus says to him, after hearing all of his whining and all of his complaining, when he asks him, do you want to be well? The next thing Jesus says to him is, rise, take up your bed and walk. No excuses, no whining, take up your bed and walk. The reason he asks the question is because he intends to give you the power to do it. He doesn't ask you, do you want to get well, to tease you and to taunt you. He asks you, do you want to get well, because he's ready and capable to help you get well. Yes, that's the answer. He's ready to help you get well. Stop focusing on what you can't do. Stop focusing on what happened to you. Instead, focus on what Jesus can do for you. The second verse I want to take a look at is in Daniel chapter 1. Let me back up a little bit. In Daniel chapter 1, King Nebuchadnezzar just won a big victory, and he's taking all of the spoils of war and bringing it back to his country. But he was also a very smart man, and he knew he wanted future leaders. So he took the very best of all of the men, including the royal family, to come to a 3-year training program in the palace. They would have the best food, the best books, the best living conditions, the best teachers that a king can provide. And Daniel showed up with 3 other guys. Who was that? Okay, I'm going to stand up for my brothers here. It's Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were the pagan names. If you're going to call them those names, you have to call Daniel Belteshazzar, because that was his pagan name. Somehow Daniel got a free pass, and we don't call him Belteshazzar. Well, I want you to quit calling my boys Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I told Doug Batchelor that once. I said, quit saying those names. It's pagan. You got to give them their Christian names, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they went through the potluck line, and there was a problem. They said, man, we're going to be here for 3 years. We can't be eating this food and drinking this wine. So they prayed about it, and they went to the leader of the students, and they said, we would just like to drink water and eat vegetables. And I can hear the leader now. Oh, great. I got a bunch of vegetarians on my hand. Where are you going to get your protein? Where are you going to get your B12? And he said, well, listen, why don't we do a little test? Why don't you let us just eat vegetables and drink water for 10 days and see what happens? And the guard is probably thinking, all right, bunch of vegetarians. In 10 days, they'll be begging for a Big Mac double bacon cheeseburger. So at the 10 days, the guard examined them. And what did he discover? On a plant-based diet, drinking only water. Look what it says in Daniel chapter 1. At the end of 10 days, they died. Is that what it says? No, it says at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate a portion of the king's delicacies. The guy said, hey, you know what? You guys are looking good. You're looking good. Go ahead and keep eating your plants and drinking your water. Then at the end of 3 years, they were brought into the king to be examined. And Daniel and all right, they showed up, and the king examined them. What did he discover? In all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in his realm. I hope you caught the significance of that. They weren't 10 times better than their classmates. They were 10 times better than the experts who were already working for the king for 10, 20, 30 years. These guys were the experts. And yet these boys were 10 times better than them. That's unheard of. Have you ever heard of somebody graduating from medical school, shows up at the hospital, he's 10 times smarter than the chief of staff at that hospital? Doesn't happen. Graduating from teacher's college, she shows up at the university, she's 10 times smarter than the university president. Doesn't happen. But it happened here. How did they do that? The answer is found in verse 7. It's the same way you're going to do it. The same way they did it, you can do it also. And the verse 7 tells us exactly how. But Daniel purposed in his heart, or he made up his mind, that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's delicacies, nor the wine which he drank. What did they do? They made up their mind. Because, my friend, once you make up your mind, you get power. If you make up your mind to get drunk tonight, can you get to that? Satan will see to it. If you make up your mind to be sober, can God take care of that? He will see to it. Make up your mind, because once you make up your mind, you will get power to either destroy yourself or restore yourself. But you have to make up your mind. It's the power of choice. And we'll be talking about that later on in the seminar. Make up your mind. Make up your mind. We're going now into the exercise and nutrition segment because we still have another hour, right? 5:15. If you've been 5-10 years getting out of shape, don't expect to be Tarzan by the end of the month, all right? You took time to get out of shape. You're going to have to take time to get back into shape. And so we have to follow the laws that God has set out for us. What is the best exercise? We're told it's gardening. Gardening is the best exercise. Because not only have you moved and lifted and dug and planted, but you've got something to eat. So gardening is the best exercise. Those of you who maybe don't have a place to garden or you don't know how, then walking is a good starting point. But remember to maintain good posture, that hook in your sternum pulling you so your head is back, your shoulders are back, and you're getting all that oxygen down to the lower third of your lungs. Gardening. It's good to have a buddy system. I always like to work out with somebody because they can encourage you while you're doing your workout. Some days you'll say, oh, it's too cloudy, it's too hot, it's too dark, it's too this, and you get an excuse to not exercise. But if you have a buddy system, then you can encourage each other and keep doing those things that will make it all better. So, because I travel so much, I have a lot of music that I work out to, do my exercising. And when I'm back home, I have a little trampoline that I bounce on. I like to travel with it, but excess baggage is $125 each way, which is $250 for me to take that. I might as well come here and buy one and sell it to somebody when I leave. But I work out on a trampoline regularly. I'm on it about 3 times a day. I bounce on it a little bit in the morning to wake up. I bounce on it at night to relax my traps because I tend to get a little tight up here in my trapezoids. So I bounce on it for just a few minutes and it just relaxes me to go to sleep. But about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I do my workout. And it only takes 30 minutes, that's all. I bounce on it for 10 minutes, then I get off. I do 20 push-ups and 100 crunches with my knees up, crossing over like this. Then I get back on the trampoline. I bounce for 5 minutes. It reboots me. I get off. I do 20 more push-ups, 100 more crunches. Then I get back on, bounce 5 minutes, get off, 20 more push-ups, 100 more crunches, and then I finish with the final 10 minutes. So in 30 minutes, I've done 300 crunches and 60 push-ups. That keeps you firm. This core has to be solid, all right? But that's what I like to do at home. Unfortunately, when I'm away from home, I don't get to do all those things, so I have to adjust to what I can do. But anybody going to Rocky Point, just let me know during the week. Pay the gas, make the meals. All right. So this exercise ties in well with many benefits. Some people say, well, I don't want to be an athlete. I don't want to compete. Why should I exercise? That's not why we exercise. I'm going to show you some excellent reasons why you should exercise. In fact, a dozen. So let's take a look. You'll get more oxygen into the body. The brain uses 4 times more oxygen than the entire body. This is the big oxygen user. You want your mind clear and strong? Exercise. They found out cancer cells cannot thrive in an oxygen-rich environment. When they want to grow cancer cells, they put it in a vacuum, and the cancer cells explode. But once they start popping in oxygen, it almost stops the multiplication of cancer cells. So you want to keep this oxygen-rich, and that's what exercise will do. It'll help your digestion. One of the things I like to do after I eat is take at least a half-hour walk. It helps the food to digest. Exercise will improve your circulation. It'll relax your nerves and your emotions. Have you ever seen it when somebody starts getting a little tense or a little upset? You tell them, you need to go take a walk. It's really true. Taking a walk refocuses your mind, and it gets you to exercising and calming down. It'll increase your resistance to disease. It'll help your figure and your complexion. Exercise is also going to reduce fatigue. We suffer from 2 kinds of fatigue, hypertonic and hypotonic. Exercise will take care of both of those. It'll strengthen your muscles and your bones. When you put weight on these bones, the body is going to keep them full and solid. But when you sit at home, you sit in your car, and you sit at work, your bones become hollow, like straws. It's called osteoporosis. And if you don't use it, you will lose it. So you've got to do weight-bearing exercise. Swimming is good, but it is not a weight-bearing exercise. You need to have gravity pulling on your bones. Is bicycling a weight-bearing exercise? No, it's not. You're sitting on the bicycle. It's good exercise, but it's not weight-bearing exercise. So you need to do weight-bearing exercise, which is like running, which is me on my trampoline, jump rope. There's all kinds of weight-bearing exercises, lifting weights, good weight-bearing exercises. All right, it'll help the heart against disease. It'll sharpen your mental powers. It'll enhance your poise and your agility, and it'll protect against sudden stress. So there we have it, a dozen good reasons why you should exercise, and not one good reason why you shouldn't, unless you have a physical limitation or you've had an injury. But other than that, try to exercise. You're really going to benefit from it. And that ties in well with weight loss, because exercise is one of the biggest factors in losing weight. How many of you ever watched that TV show, The Biggest Loser? Yeah, I used to watch that. The problem with The Biggest Loser was they lost it too fast, and they didn't create a lifestyle change. They found out that the vast majority of them that were on Biggest Loser gained the weight back and more when they left. And this is what we're finding at our health institutes. When people come there for 30 days, they lose 10, 15 pounds. Their diabetes is in control. Their blood pressure medication is way down. But when they get home, it's off to McDonald's. It's off to Dunkin' Donuts, over to Colonel Cholesterol, chicken licking, and it all comes back. So what you want to do is make lifestyle change, not just habit change. We got to make a lifestyle change. And we'll be talking about that more in the seminar. So if you would do 3 things to lose weight, I can guarantee you, you will lose between 50 and 100 pounds in 1 year. Because safe weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds a week. That's safe. Well, 1 to 2 pounds a week, if there's 52 weeks in a year, what are you going to lose in a year? 50 to 100 pounds. There you go. So how do you do it? These 3 simple steps. You will never be hungry. You will never be irritable, but you will lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, sometimes even more. Now, you may plateau for a while, but don't let that scare you. The body is just balancing out and trying to get adjusted to the change, all right? Plus, you may not lose as much weight, but your clothes are looser. Because in exercising, you will have more muscle mass than fat. And muscle is heavier than fat. So don't let the weight loss thing, the scale doesn't tell the whole truth. Okay? Because the exercise is replacing the fat because you're burning the fat. And it may say that you're weighing a little more when really you're not. All right. So, weight loss. Rule number 1, eat natural food. God put something in all of his food to keep you from eating too much. What's in all of God's food that fills you up so you stop eating? Fiber. It's just like the nose or the hose at the gas station. When it hits that nozzle and it's full, it snaps, doesn't it? No more. Well, you have a gland in your brain called the apostat gland. It's like your appetite gland. And when this gullet area, which is about the size of 2 fists, when it's full, it snaps and tells the brain, no more food. And you'll stop eating. You're not hungry. And when there's fiber in that food, you can fill up quicker. Now, is there fiber in a Coca-Cola? No Coke? No. How about in candy bars? Almost none, very little. So your stomach's not full. You're still hungry. You want to eat. But your fat cells are getting full, aren't they? That's what you're filling up, the fat cells. You're not filling up the gullet area, which you need to fill up to stop eating, to lose your appetite. So, from dirt to dish, no fooling around. When I sit down to eat my food, I like to recognize it as if Adam and Eve would know what it was too. All right? From dirt to dish, no fooling around. We keep eating out of jars, boxes, and cans. We start looking like jars, boxes, and cans. Yes. We want to eat natural food. Why do you think we call this planet Mother Earth? Mother is supposed to feed us. If it doesn't come out of the ground or out of a tree, I don't want it. My food comes out of the ground and out of the tree. That's where it should come from Mom, Mother Earth. She'll provide my food for me. Second thing to lose weight is you need to eat a bigger breakfast like a king, lighten up at lunch, and if you have to eat a 3rd meal, which you don't, but if you have to, very light. Some fruit, some soup, or something like that. But a 3rd meal is not really necessary if you're eating nutritious food. I've been eating 2 meals a day. My normal routine is I eat breakfast at 9 o'clock because I'm not done with my worship till then. And then I eat my second and final meal at 4 o'clock. Those are the 2 times a day that I eat. And because I eat what's called nutrient-dense foods, I get all the nutrition I need. I'm not eating white bread. The whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. The whiter the rice is not so nice. If you eat all these refined processed foods, you're not getting nutrients, and your body starts to starve because it needs the vitamins and minerals from whole plant food. So, big in the morning, then you got all day to burn it. But we do the opposite, don't we? We eat big at night, and that means we're going to wear it. You know, God has said, and we see evidence, if you eat more calories than you burn, I'm going to tell everybody on you. Isn't that right? If you eat more calories than you burn, everybody's going to know. So that's why you want your caloric intake big. Calorie just means energy. You want to eat your energy in the morning so you have all day to burn it. You don't want to eat it at night because you're going to bed in a few hours. And if you don't burn it, what are you going to do with those calories? Store it. It's the only two things God can do, or your body can do with energy. It has to burn it or store it. So I prefer mine to burn it. I don't want it to store it and get fluffy. The third and final thing to lose that weight is you've got to exercise. Muscle is the flame that burns fat. This is why it's generally easier for men to lose weight, because we have more muscle mass. But when those muscles start working, they say, hey, I need energy. And the body goes looking and it said, oh, got a bunch of fat cells over here. Let's burn them. And they burn up. They're gone because you used them to make that muscle work. So those 3 simple steps, you should easily lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. And in a year, people are going to notice. Man, what have you done? Did you get a new haircut? Did you get lost some weight? Easier to do than you think, I guess. But you just have to do it. That high fiber will keep you satiated. It'll keep you satisfied so that you won't be going in the kitchen looking for what else you can grab. Because the fiber is in there saying, no more in here. The tank is full. No, door's closed. No more for it. No more. So keep that fiber going in there. Keep that tank full. Now, there are some statements here on appetite that I'm going to share with you. And I was fortunate, blessed, that I found these when I was a new Adventist, because these statements set the course of my life. I realized what I needed to do. My number one priority, as I told you in the sermon this morning, is a daily devotional life. Spending time alone with God. That's critical. That's where I get the power and the desire to do the things God asked me to do. But I want to listen to these statements here that I read early on, and I realized there was something very, very critical here that I needed to get in line. And here they are. I'll give you the pages later if you would like. It says, in no other way has Satan come with his temptations to fallen humankind as successfully as through appetite. He knows this is his biggest success. It's a winner. Why do you think there's new products on the grocery shelf every year? Did we find a new plant? No, we didn't. We created it in a factory. Why? Because Satan knows this is his greatest success. And we're going to show you a video on the largest food flavoring company in the world. And they will tell you on this video, we are trying to get the public addicted. That's their goal. They want you to be addicted to their product, and they will make the money. Next statement. Satan is constantly on the alert to bring the race fully under his control. He wants to control you. He's a control freak. His strongest hold on man is through appetite. This he seeks to stimulate in every possible way. That's why the new food that comes out from those flavoring companies that make it sell well, we call them excitotoxins. And you can watch Dr. Blaylock on YouTube. He'll explain excitotoxins to you and where they come from. They do not come from the Garden of Eden. They come from the factory. And once you get the body excited with the different stimulants, the vinegars, the spices, and so on, it wants more excitement and it needs stronger excitement. And we'll talk about that a little later. Next one. Through inducing men to yield to his temptations, Satan can get control of them. If you will yield to his temptations, he's getting control of you. And through no class of temptation does he achieve greatest success than those addressed to the appetite. If he can control the appetite, he can control the whole man. I don't need your eyes, I don't need your hands, I don't need your ears, I need your tongue. Because if I've got your tongue, I've got all the rest. I'm going to enter in right here. And then this last statement, and this was the bomb. This was the big one. When I read this, I said, all right, we're gonna get this one right. The controlling power of appetite will prove the ruin of thousands who, if they had conquered on appetite, they would have the moral power to gain the victory over every other temptation. Wow, when I read that, I said, I got it. You see, those temptations are like a line of dominoes. How do you knock down a whole line of temptations? All you have to do is knock down the first one. And what does she say the first one is? It's appetite. Because if we can gain the victory over appetite, we will have moral power for all the other temptations. Appetite. As we draw near the close of time, and if you don't think we're there, you need to wake up. As we draw near the close of time, Satan's temptation to indulge the appetite will be more powerful and more difficult to resist. There it is. It's not going to get easier, which means we got to get tougher because it's going to get worse. We've just started. It's going to get worse. You need to nail this appetite down because what you eat and drink today is going to walk and talk tomorrow. We know that. Now let's take a couple of look up some Bible verses. There's a lot of it in the Bible, and I don't have time to go through all of them, but I decided just to select the ones from the wisest man who ever lived, Solomon. And all these verses are taken from Proverbs, and he addressed this issue over and over and over again. Proverbs 13:25, the righteous has enough to satisfy his soul. So we should be eating soul food, shouldn't we? We should be satisfying our soul. Unfortunately, we eat to satisfy our taste buds. Now, I'm going to give you your first physiology lesson tonight. There are no brains in here. None. God put the brains on top for a reason, to control everything else underneath. Anything under that brain that gets control, it may destroy the entire system. Did you get that? No brains in here. This is not the decision maker. Proverbs 13:3, the one who guards his mouth preserves his life. Want to preserve your life? The mouth has two primary functions. It does a number of other little things, but the two primary things that you're busy with your mouth is talking and tasting. There it is. And life and death are right there. Proverbs 21:23, he who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. Guard your mouth and your tongue. And then the last one, Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. By what you say to people, you're either bringing death or life to them. By what you bring inside, you're bringing death or life to yourself. It's all right here in the tongue, but make sure it doesn't make the decision. That's not its function. Its function is to tell you how it tastes. This makes the decision, and we'll be talking about that later on in the seminar. So some people think, are you telling me I have to be a vegetarian? No, I'm not. I want you to make a wise decision. Knowledge is power. And I'm going to give you some knowledge. You may not agree with it, and that's okay. But show me your documents if it's wrong. But it's true. Dr. Reuben Massey was the first president of the American Medical Association. As the first president of the AMA, he wanted to improve the health of the American citizens. And he recommended to Congress that America be educated on a vegetarian regime. Did we get educated that way? No, we didn't. We got, when I was growing up, that box that had 4 food groups: meat, dairy, fruits and vegetables, and grains. But if you look on the bottom of that poster, and I wish I would have grabbed one, because when I started teaching 30 years ago, they were still in the school. It says on the bottom, brought to you by the Dairy Council or the Meat Packers Association. It's an advertisement. And finally, the education board said, you can't put those posters up in the school because the school is an education center. It is not a propaganda center. And that's propaganda. It is not education. Take it off. And they were removed from all of our schools. We were being lied to by business people who aren't interested in your future or your health. They're interested in their wallet. So, vegetarianism. Oh, that's for hippies. That's for tree huggers. That's for earth muffins. I'm not one of them. Actually, vegetarianism has been around for a long time. It's nothing new. In fact, it goes back about 6,000 years to the Garden of Eden, our first parents. But they only lived about 1,000 years, so it must not really work, huh? Yes. There are a lot of famous luminaries throughout history who have been vegetarians that you don't know about, but I did my homework. You'll recognize their names: Plato, Socrates, Leonardo da Vinci, Gandhi, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, Leo Tolstoy, Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin. These are all vegetarians. Didn't know that, did you? Do your homework. Find out what company you're keeping. Brilliant men, creative men, because they had a clear mind and healthy arteries to feed that mind what it needed to know. The Journal of the American Medical Association, it's called JAMA for short, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world, said that a vegetarian diet can prevent 97% of our coronary occlusions. That's heart attack. Number one killer in North America can be prevented. How? By a vegetarian diet. This report didn't come out last year. It didn't come out 10 years ago. This report came out in June of 1961. Yes, we have known for over half a century how to stop the number one killer in North America, and in fact, the world. But we haven't done it. Why? We like it. And we're being trained by the advertisers. And if you don't think the advertisements work, they would have quit spending those billions of dollars a long time ago. But it works. They're spending it, and you're buying it. You're eating it. Food to make money, not to make you well. That's what you... When was the last time you saw an ad for broccoli? Or kidney beans? Yeah. But these man-made products that I'm going to show you the video on what the flavoring companies are doing, you're going to be shocked. I couldn't believe 60 Minutes got that information. That's a famous news magazine. They went to Juvenal, Switzerland, and they talked to these face-to-face, and you get to hear how they have fooled you. You're the idiot, and they know it. They control you, and they know it. And that's why they get paid big money by large corporations to doctor up their drinks and their food so that you can't leave it alone. I've got to have my cup of coffee in the morning. I've got to have my Cheetos. I've got to have this. And on it goes. Why do you have to have it? You know, I've never got up in the morning and said, I've got to have some Brussels sprouts. I can't. Don't talk to me till I've had my Brussels sprouts. Yeah. God's food doesn't treat you that way. But these man-made foods, you're being controlled. You're being tortured. Step away from that. So, let's take a look at the human system and see what it's designed for. Car is an internal combustion engine. Is that right? It requires gasoline or diesel or electricity to make it run. What about this machine? What does it require? Have you taken a look? Well, it's time we did. Let's see how this was designed and what it's made to take in, process, and eliminate. First of all, let's begin with our jaw structure, our mandibles. I want to see if you can do what I do. Can you move your jaw from left to right like this? That's good. How about up and down like this? Okay, now here's the tricky one. Can you move it forward and backward? Oh, don't you look silly. All right, you can move your jaw in 3 directions. Only vegetarian animals can do that. The jaw of a meat-eating animal will only go up and down. You have never seen a dog eat like this. He can't. He's a meat eater. But goats, horses, cows, Your mama? So it goes like this. It's designed to break down bulky, fibrous plant food. Now, do we have any dentists or oral hygienists here tonight? Yeah? Any dentist will tell you this is the dental structure of a plant-eating animal. Your molars and bicuspids in the back are flat on top. They're not sharp. They're flat. And they're round on the sides. You have 4 canine incisors designed to break into apples and carrots. But the rest of your teeth are flat, aren't they? Are they sharp and pointed like a wolf or a bear? No, they're flat. If you use these teeth and you sneak up to a cow and you dust off his hind quarter and try to take a chomp, all you're going to get is kicked, because these teeth will not puncture his flesh. They're designed for grinding vegetables and seeds and nuts. It's not for tearing flesh. So, your teeth gave you away. But let's continue. If you were to send a sample of your saliva down to a laboratory and they looked under a microscope, they could look at your saliva and say, this is a plant-eating animal, whoever it belongs to. Because there's a very high concentration of specialized enzymes designed to break down starches. This only occurs in vegetarian animals. So you're busted. Your saliva says you're supposed to be eating plants. When you sweat off your skin. The meat-eating animal sweats off their tongue. Now, claws. You do not have claws. You have the most unique food-gathering apparatus on planet Earth. You have soft padded fingers and a opposable thumb that can gather the fruits, the berries, and the vegetables without destroying them. Man does not have claws, but he pretends he does. He sits down and grabs a fork and a knife, and he goes, "Rawr! I'm a meat-eating animal. Look at my claws." Who are you kidding? But let's continue. Hydrochloric acid, HCl. A meat-eating animal produces 10 times more hydrochloric acid than you do. You do not produce enough hydrochloric acid to neutralize the toxins that are in meat. That's right, I said toxins in meat. Biologically speaking, meat is 75% toxic to the human system. It is not designed for you. How many of you have heard of John Harvey Kellogg of Battle Creek, Michigan? The Kellogg cereal? He was 100 years of all the other medical people because he was following God's information. Royalty from Europe were sent to his place because the doctors in Europe couldn't figure out what to do. They said, "Go see this Dr. Kellogg. He seems to be able to do things we can't." One of the lectures that Dr. Kellogg would give to his patients is he would bring out a bacteriologist. And this bacteriologist had 2 platters. One was a slab of steak, another was cow manure. And he would tell the audience, there is more bacteria in the steak than there is in the manure. So you would be safer to eat the cow pie rather than the cow himself. Meat is full of urine, waste products, cholesterol, hormones, and whatever else they put into that animal before they're slaughtered. You don't know what you're eating when you eat slaughterhouse meat and flesh. And I'll tell you, if you did, well, more about that later. So, hydrochloric acid. This is the biggest eliminator of all as to what you should be eating, your digestive tract. There's no question this digestive tract is for plants. It is not for flesh. The digestive tract of a meat-eating animal is very short. It's only 3 times the length of the animal's torso. So that when the meat goes in, it can evacuate out quickly. The digestive tract of a human or of a vegetarian animal, both the same, is 10 times the length of the animal's torso. And guess what? Yours is 10 times the length of your torso, about 30 to 40 feet long. It requires fiber to go through this long, convoluted digestive tract. And because there is no fiber in meat or cheese, when it goes inside this digestive tract, it slows down. Fruits and vegetables, grains, nuts, because they have fiber, will go through your digestive tract in less than 12 hours, depending upon how much you ate and what you ate. Do you know how long it takes flesh to go through your digestive tract? About 72 hours, 3 days. Do you know what happens to that flesh inside a warm, dark, acid environment? It putrefies, poisons your blood, makes you irritable, slow, and sluggish. No question about it. You are not designed anatomically to handle flesh or cheese because it can't get through this digestive tract. So what I'm telling you, hands down, no debate, you are a vegetarian animal. You can choose to eat meat, you can choose to eat dairy, you'll still be my friend. Maybe not for as long, but you'll still be my friend. But you're going against the system. That's not what it's designed for. Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who's a nutritional biochemist at Cornell University, emeritus, he's held in highest esteem. He was chosen of all of the thousands of doctors to lead the China study. How many of you have heard of the China study? It's the largest medical study in the history of mankind. They wanted to know why the Chinese didn't have the diseases that we have in the Western world, and they don't. They have to come to America to learn how to do an appendicitis because they don't get appendicitis over there. That's not a bug you get. That's something you're doing wrong to get appendicitis. And that's what I got. So, Dr. T. Colin Campbell at Cornell University, Cornell and Oxford teamed together to do this massive study. Millions of dollars, thousands of workers. They went to China and they studied all the sections in China to get their conclusion. Massive amounts of questions. You can watch videos on it on YouTube if you want to hear the details. But Dr. Campbell said the primary reason why they do not have Western diseases is their diet. No question. There are a couple of minor issues, but the big one is their diet. And that's why he wrote the China study, and the Meat and Dairy Council were very unhappy, but they could not sue them because this was scientific data that you cannot sue. And so they didn't bother. And the book stands, the China study. I met Dr. Campbell personally at a symposium in California. Thousands of people were there, and I went there because I really wanted to hear him in person. And he said, "You Seventh-day Adventists have known this for a long time. Shame on you." That's what he says. Well, after his presentation, I watched him go off the stage, and then I watched him go to the back. Now, not too much gets past me because I got some of my dad's genes. I told you my dad was a cake decorator. He was also a spy in espionage. And the cake decorating worked as a cover because he would go all over the world decorating these cakes. And at night, when everybody was asleep, he would take his microfilm cameras and take pictures of the bases and everything else that the United States wanted. He never got caught. But the first time I went to Russia, he had a fit. I'll tell you that story another time. Because he said, if they find out you're my son, they will hold you ransom to get us to release some of their spies because you're my son. I said, don't worry, I'm under a cloak of Jesus. They never caught me. I've been there 3 times. Anyway, T. Colin Campbell was standing there in the back. And I thought, well, what's he waiting there for? Nobody's talking to him. I'm not wasting any time. I jumped out of my chair. I ran back there. I said, are you busy right now? He says, no, I'm waiting for my driver to come and pick me up. I said, well, do you mind if I ask you some questions before he gets here? He says, go ahead. The driver was an hour late. Hallelujah. I fired questions at him like a machine gun. And because he's a university professor, he fired right back at me. Great dialogue. I was so excited. And then he saw the driver show up. He says, I've got to go now. But he says, Paul, he says, you and I are on the same page. The problem is we're going against multi-billion-dollar industry and crooked politicians. But we have one advantage, and with that advantage, we're going to beat them. And I said, really? He said, yep, we've got the truth, and we will beat them with the truth. Keep doing what you're doing. We're on the same page. That was wonderful to hear. Dr. Campbell was asked one time to speak to a room full of cardiologists, heart specialists. They said, Dr. Campbell, what can we do for our heart patients? Please tell us what to do. And in one short paragraph, he told them exactly what to do. Here's what he said to these cardiologists. Why must we be reticent or reluctant about recommending a diet which we know is safe and healthy? We as scientists can no longer take the attitude that the public cannot benefit from information they're not ready for. Did you catch that? You can't handle the truth, so we're not going to give it to you. You've been brainwashed and bleached so much, you don't know what truth is. So we're going to keep lying to you, and you're going to keep listening, and you're going to keep doing what we told you to do. Dr. Campbell said, we must have the integrity to tell them the truth, even though they're not ready for it. That's what he said right here. We must have the integrity to tell them the truth and let them decide what to do with it. We can't force them to follow the guidelines, but we can at least give them the guidelines and let them decide. Thank you. Tell me the truth. We must tell the public that a diet of roots, stems, seeds, flowers, fruits, and leaves is the healthiest diet and the only diet we can promote, endorse, and recommend. That's from the nutritional biochemist at Cornell University, Professor Emeritus, held in highest esteem. Very good. Now the World Health Organization, and that's right, NASA, they teamed together to find out how to improve world health. So the World Health experts sent in their experts, National Academy of Sciences, I knew that wasn't right. National Academy of Sciences. They teamed up, did exhaustive studies on how to improve world health, not just a particular city or a country. They wanted to do this for the entire planet. And after they put their information together, it all came down to this. Recommendation, lower your salt intake, avoid alcohol, reduce fat and cholesterol, exercise to maintain proper weight, a moderate amount of protein. Most Americans eat 200% more protein than their body can handle. You are not a protein machine. You are a carbohydrate machine. That's what you run on, carbohydrates. At least 6 to 8 servings a day of fruits and vegetables, especially the green leafy vegetables, whole grains, nuts, beans, and seeds. Nowhere in this list is meat and dairy. What? Did the National Academy of Sciences and the World Health Organization forget something? Nope. They're trying to improve the health of the planet. And this is the recommendation, a plant-based diet. Amazing. Get back to the Garden of Eden. That's what I tell people to do if you want what to eat in one sentence. Get back to the Garden of Eden. That's all you need to know. If Adam and Eve didn't eat it, maybe you shouldn't. Stick with a plant-based diet. I'm watching my time here and deciding where I need to go. People ask me, so why did God give us the animals? Good question. Why did God give us the animals? And there's 2 answers. To be our companions and to be our servants. Now, if you go around eating your servants, are you going to have any servants left? When Adam named the animals, he didn't name the cow pot roast. He didn't name the pig bacon. These were his companions, his friends. He named them. We name our dogs and cats. And there are countries that eat dog and cat. My dad, when he goes on really deep cover, they have to eat in the wilderness sometimes while they're sneaking in to make their plan. And he said, we've had to eat dogs. He said, but just to let you know, the black-haired dogs taste the best. I don't want to find out. I would guess that different dogs taste like different fish, you know. Salmon doesn't taste like a trout, that doesn't taste like a sardine, so a Chihuahua should taste different than a St. Bernard. I'm not going to find out, but you can go ahead and investigate if you like. So, what does the Bible say about our diet? The original diet given to mankind is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. What was that diet? Huh? We're guessing. Genesis 1:29, the original diet given to Adam and Eve was a fruitarian diet. Nothing died in the Garden of Eden. They only ate the fruit of the plants. Now, after sin and sickness came into the world, God added the healing medicinal qualities of the herbs and vegetables. And that's where Genesis 3:18 comes in. You can eat the herbs and the vegetables now because you're going to start getting sick. And you need the healing medicinal qualities of the herbs and vegetables. Never again in the Bible does God say, this is what I want you to eat. Those are the only two verses where God says, this is what I want you to eat. Now, I know what you're thinking about, the flood, and I'm with you. But follow the wording carefully. After the flood and the vegetation was wiped out, God said, I'm now going to have to allow you to eat meat. Did you hear the difference? It's not what he wanted. But because of an emergency, I'm going to allow you to eat meat. However, unlike the fruits and vegetables, which you can have all you want of anything, I have to put some restrictions on this meat to make it safer. First of all, God said, I put animals in this world to clean up after you. They're living garbage cans. Stay out of the garbage cans. They're in the air, they're on the ground, and they're in the ocean, aren't they? Clean up after us. Living garbage cans, stay out of the garbage cans. The second restriction, God said, of the clean meat, the other garbage can ones are unclean. All right? The reason they're unclean is because they clean up after you. That makes them unclean. But of the clean animals, God said to make them safer, you have to remove two things before I'm going to allow you to eat that. And it's clear in Leviticus 17, Deuteronomy 12, Genesis chapter 9. Moses wrote it in 3 of his 4 books. And what two things have to be removed from the clean meat? The blood and the fat. You know this. Why aren't you doing it? Every Adventist meat eater that I know eats fat and blood. Can you claim to follow the Bible and follow God and eat fat and blood? No, you can't. No, you can't. I taught at a Methodist seminary to Methodist ministers. I told the president of the seminary, can I say anything I want from the Bible? He says, if it's from the Bible, you can say whatever you want. And I asked this room full of Methodist ministers who are getting more education, they had me as a guest speaker. I said, what two things have to be removed from the clean meat? Do you know they all said fat and blood? And I said, look, I grew up a Methodist, and I never heard this my whole young life. They never talked about fat. You guys know this. You know it. They said, yeah, we know it. And I said, so how come you're not saying anything? Well, you know, we have other issues we need to discuss. I said, you know, some of this diet issue is called an abomination to God. I think that would move up on the list somewhere if it's an abomination. And they just kind of squirmed in their seat and they didn't say anything. When I finished that lecture, the president of that university, that seminary, wrote me a very nice letter, and it's on my website. He appreciated what I shared with his ministers at that university. I'll tell you, the information is there. We just got to keep looking and make sure we understand it. So, God said, remove the fat and the blood. We know that in the animal kingdom, there are some 200 communicable diseases. Of those 200 communicable diseases, half of them, about 100, will cross the species barrier into humans. You see, we have a barrier between us and the animal world that protects us. It's called a species barrier. We don't get some of their diseases because it can't get through, but half of them can. I have enough disease in my species. I don't need to be eating an animal and bringing in 100 more that's not in my species. But I do when I eat meat and dairy products. I'm inviting 100 more possible diseases to come into my system. That's not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. Now, can you get meat without fat and blood? Is it possible? You haven't even checked, have you? You have to go to a kosher Jewish market. They remove the fat and the blood. I was in New York lecturing and in Connecticut, and I saw some Hasidic Jews. You can spot them because they have the hair ringlets like this and the yarmulke. I saw a couple of them standing there, so I went up to them and I said, "Hey, do you guys eat kosher meat?" They said, "Yes." I said, "Well, good. Tell me about it. What's it like?" They said, "You don't want seconds." And I said, "Really?" They said, "No, it's like eating a gray rubber band. It's tough, it's chewy, and there's no taste. Because you see, the salty urine is gone. The rich fat is gone. The succulent blood is gone, which is exactly what God had in mind when he told you, get the fat and the blood out because you won't want seconds. But now we have thirds because we're eating the fat and the blood. You cannot claim to be following the Bible and eat fat and blood. And every meat eater I know, from conference presidents on down, eat fat and blood. I've seen them with my own eyes. How can you do that? Leviticus 17, Deuteronomy 12, Genesis chapter 9 is very clear. No fat, no blood. God said the blood is mine. You leave it alone. Where do cancer cells and leukemia cells travel in the body? In the blood cells. God says, no blood. Can't have it. It's mine. I can handle it. You can't. Leave it alone. But we don't. And we strike a blind eye. I've talked to evangelists. I said, how come when you hold your crusades and you talk about the health night, you never talk about fat and blood? You never talk about it. I've never heard it. I do it in my meetings, but they said, well, we don't want to give them too much too quick. I said, I understand. Take them a step at a time. When do you pop the question of fat and blood? When? It's never brought up. And we go along blindly, eating the fat and blood. And Satan says, that's okay. Leave the pork, leave the shrimp alone. You just keep eating that fat and blood because I've got lots of diseases just for you. And you're going to wonder how you got that. I don't eat pork. I don't eat shrimp. No, but you eat a dead animal. And his fat and blood are in there to bring you a disease. Not a good decision. Not a good decision. 85% of the grain that's grown in the United States goes to cattle. Do you realize if we took that 85% and sent it around the world, a child would never die again of starvation? But our little children are dying because we want to feed a cow and a pig and a chicken. Because 85% of our grain goes to them, doesn't go to humans. That's sad. We're losing over 5 billion tons of topsoil a year because of cattle. When you lose the topsoil, what's it called? Dust bowl. Do you know what happens when your place becomes a dust bowl? You have to leave. It's uninhabitable. That happened in America, the Dust Bowl, and everybody left. But we're still having these animals, and we're still creating these dangerous results. What about dairy? Yeah, is this guy going to leave nothing alone? Remember, I don't know what's in your refrigerator. In fact, I'm really not interested in what's in there right now. I'm more interested in what's going to be in your refrigerator next month and the month after that, to see if you're going to allow these things to make changes for you for eternity. So, dairy products. Dairy is scary. If you're a baby doctor, a pediatrician in the United States, you know who this man is. Dr. Frank Oski, Dr. Frank Oski was former director of pediatrics at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and physician-in-chief at Johns Hopkins Children's Center, the #1 pediatrician at Johns Hopkins University. He's responsible for publishing 19 medical textbooks dealing with hematology, which is what? Blood, and pediatrics, children. He's published over 250 medical manuscripts that are read by the best medical universities around the world. And one of the booklets he's responsible for, you can get at the ABC, that's where I got mine, is called Don't Drink Your Milk. Why would the head pediatrician at Johns Hopkins University tell us not to drink milk? Let me read you the last couple of sentences in the closing of his book. Cow milk has no valid claim as the perfect food. What? Well, who told us milk was the perfect food? The Dairy Council. Is that information or propaganda? Propaganda, yes. People say, oh, I don't drink milk, but I do eat a little cheese. It takes 5 cups of milk to make 1 cup of cheese. Go figure it out. As nutrition, milk produces allergies in infants, diarrhea and cramps in the older child and adult, and is a factor in developing heart attacks and strokes. Perhaps when the public is educated, when they're what? Educated as to the hazards of milk, only calves will be left to drink their mother's milk. Man is the only mammal that after he's been weaned goes to someone else's mama and starts nursing off of her. And she doesn't even look like him. Cow milk is a completely different formula than mother's milk. It is not designed for the human system. Cow's milk has 3 times more sodium, 3 times more calcium, 3 times more protein than mother's milk. This stuff is rocket fuel, and it has to be. Because you see, a newborn calf weighs about 50 pounds. Its first year of growth, it will be 10 times bigger, about 500 pounds. It needs a strong formula, and God knew that, and he provided it. A human baby, 6 to 8 pounds at birth, its first year of growth, it will only triple its birth weight. So unless you plan on your 1-year-old weighing 500 pounds, you need to give it the right formula. And it is not cow's milk. It is not designed for humans. So people always ask me, where do you get your calcium? Good question. But I turn around and ask them, where does the elephant get his calcium? Giraffe, 20 feet in the air. Gorilla, they're all vegans. They get it from plants. Now, if there is enough calcium in plants for an elephant leg this big, do you think there's enough for these skinny little legs? There's no question. Calcium is everywhere. Go to the library and get a food chart. Look up calcium. It's in vegetables, it's in fruits, it's in nuts. It's everywhere. And some of the calcium is higher in vegetables than in milk, like mustard greens, collard greens, turnip greens. But the big factor is that they have discovered is the calcium in milk is not bioavailable to you. In other words, you can't absorb it. The calcium in plants is the right level and you can absorb it. But calcium in milk is not bioavailable to you. So yes, you're bringing in a lot of calcium, but the body passes it. It said, I can't absorb this. This is a different kind of calcium. You didn't know that, did you? It's time to find out. The calcium in plants you can absorb. You don't need as much plant calcium because it's bioavailable to you and you can absorb it. They're basing their charts on how much calcium is in cow's milk and how much you have to drink. And they had that slogan, milk has something for everybody. I'm not sure I want what it has for me. Plant has the calcium that you're going to need. It's all right there. Okay, I'm watching my time here. I think we're going to Let me wrap up the plant thing. People say if you go vegan, what about B12? You're going to become B12 deficient. Do you know the vast majority of people who are B12 deficient are meat eaters? Vast majority are meat eaters. And so the fact that I'm a vegan doesn't mean I'm the big candidate for B12. No, the meat eater is the big candidate for B12 deficiency. If you eat meat, you need a lot of B12. If you're vegan, you need very little B12. You don't need as much. So where do you get B12? There are several sources. You can decide which one you're most comfortable with. When you get up in the morning, the bacteria that formed on the back of your tongue is B12. So if you take a brush, no toothpaste, and brush that tongue, the roof of your mouth, that's B12. You say, oh, swallow it? You've swallowed 20 times since you've been here. See, we just get these little crazy ideas in our head. Brush and swallow? Yeah, brush and swallow. What's in there, you put in there. Why are you afraid of it now? So brush that. B12 is right there. Some of the soy products and the vegetarian meats, they have B12 added on their ingredient list because they're realizing that if you're buying the soy meat and stuff and the soy milk, that you need B12. And so they put it in their products. You can also have B12 tablets that you put under your tongue, sublingual. The B12 that you swallow, you won't absorb because your digestive acids will destroy it. B12 is a very fragile vitamin. That's why you have to put it under your tongue and let it be absorbed slowly under the tongue. That's the B12 that you want. And you can take B12 tablets if you're concerned about it. If you're a vegetarian, you have a high fiber diet, and in your descending colon, that stool is up high enough in the colon for the receptors for B12 to extrapolate it. Now, if you are a meat eater, your stool is usually a lot smaller, it's hard, and the B12 receptors are up too high for it to get it. But with a high fiber diet, the stool is high enough that the B12 receptors are there to absorb it. And if you really want to be comfortable, just every year have a blood panel done. You have to pay extra for vitamin B12 and D. They don't normally test that, which is a shame. They should test that. But if you start running low on B12, you don't become deficient in a month, okay? It takes about a year, I'm understanding, before you become deficient. If your blood panel is good, you should be good for another year. If by that end of the year they see it dropping, then they're going to give you a warning. Your B12 has lowered. You need to pay attention to your B12 and decide what you're going to do. But anyway, those are several sources for B12. And like I said, the tablet under the tongue, if you're really nervous, and get that blood panel done. And I think you'll be much happier about that. All right. Some of you have seen the food pyramid. This, I need to get an updated one because they have a vegan one now. And of course, the vegan one looks similar to this, and that is the fruits and vegetables and grain are the biggest part of the diet. And then as you work your way up, getting well, on the meat side, they're looking for protein. And on the dairy side, they're looking for calcium. And I already told you where you can get the calcium. It's in the plants, and it's bioavailable to you. And as far as the protein goes, if you eat at least a half a cup of beans with any grain, you put beans and grains together, you get all 22 amino acids that your body needs. A handful of nuts a day, closed hand, not a big fistful. A child, small hand needs less. An adult, a little more. Be sure that there's at least 6 or 8 almonds in that handful. Ellen White says almonds are the king of the nuts. And I throw in a few walnuts in and some Brazil nuts, and I mix it up a little bit, but I always make sure there's about a half a dozen almonds every day in my handful of the nuts, and then I make a variety of the others because they all have good properties in them and things that you need that you should be eating throughout the week. Generally, if I look at a label, if I can't pronounce it, I don't want to eat it. When I go to the produce section, I can pronounce tomato and oranges and grapes. There's no label on it because God made it so that it's balanced and your body can absorb it and utilize it. But when you keep eating out of those processed foods, you don't know what some of those ingredients are, and they're not telling you because they disguise the word. And I'm going to show you that in a video tomorrow. when I show you the food flavoring company and what they've done to you. They have really pulled it over on you, and you've been deceived and manipulated and sick because of what they've done. But they have no morals. They have no shame. They say, well, it's what they want. We're going to give them what they want. And so we're stuck. Sugar, we'll try to go through quickly. I was in Canada and I actually saw this store. Can you believe it? I'm standing there in front of the door trying to block the people and say, read the sign, read the sign. What word do you find in the middle of the word death? Now, what word do you find in the middle of the word death? Eat. That's right. And what word do you find at the end of chocolate? 3 letters. There you go. Chocolate has 19 toxins in it, one of which is theobromine, which goes directly to your nervous system, not to mention the caffeine. There's nothing good about chocolate. If you ate a cocoa bean off the tree, you would spit it out, just like you would a coffee bean. It's very bitter. God made it that way so you would leave it alone. But we got smart. We ground it up. We put in sugar. We put in milk. We put in all kinds of stuff so that it's palatable. But you're still eating a product that is unpalatable if you ate it in its natural state. So, sugar. There are basically 2 kinds of sugar you're going to eat. You're going to eat the natural sugar that God gave us in fruits and vegetables, or you're going to eat the refined sugar that comes from the sugar cane or from the beet sugar. Now, the refined sugar that's in all your soda pops and in your candy and in your pastries is called a sucrose disaccharide sugar. And if you want to die, the disaccharide sugar will help you. When you eat a disaccharide sugar, let's say at the end of your meal you have some chocolate cake like some of you had today, you're going to get that spike. It's like a drug high, absolutely the same as a drug. You get the spike, it burns very quickly, and what goes up must go down, and it's going to drop you lower than you were. And that's when you're going to get a spanking, little kids, because you're going to be irritable and disrespectful because you're crashing from your drug high. That sugar spike went down, and now you're not happy. And then your body has to crawl back up to get to normal. The body does not like spiking. It wants to stay copacetic. It wants the heartbeat regular. It wants the breathing regular. It wants everything to stay copacetic. But when you start doing drugs like sugar, any pharmacist will tell you white sugar is not a food, it is a drug. That's how it behaves in the body. Not like food. It behaves like a drug. Now, God gave us the natural sugar in his plants, and that's called a fructose monosaccharide sugar. And when you eat that, it gives you what I like to call a happy bump. You eat the pineapple, which I had today. It was beautiful. I ate some of that pineapple and some of the strawberries. I got my happy bump, which means it takes you up a little bit. And the reason it doesn't spike up so high is because there's fiber to hold it together so it doesn't hit you so fast. See, there's no fiber in that Coca-Cola, virtually no fiber in that candy bar. And when you eat that, bam, it hits. But the strawberry and the banana and the oranges, it can't hit it because the fiber is holding it and releasing it slowly. So you get the happy bump and you go back to normal again. One of the most famous sugarholics in history was a man named Adolf. He was a sugarholic. You want to read a good book on it? It was written over half a century ago called Sugar Blues by William Dufty. You can probably get it in the library for nothing. But check out William Dufty, Sugar Blues, and maybe it'll give you more idea about sugar. All right? Harvard Medical School said, this is brilliant, Harvard said if you eat all the different colors of the fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables, you will get all your nutrition. God color-coded the food. Different colors have different nutrition. The darker the color, generally, the more nutrient-dense it is. And that's why kale and purple cabbage, I know they call it red, but it's purple. I'm not colorblind. Sweet potatoes, dark colors, rich colors, nutrient-dense. Very strong, very good for you. So I eat kale, I eat purple cabbage, I eat sweet potatoes on a very regular basis every week because I want the nutrient-dense food so that I can get all I need in 2 meals. Therefore, my grocery bill is cut by 30%, isn't it? People say it costs too much money. I said, I can save you 30% right now. Eat 2 meals. You've eliminated a third meal, which you don't need. You don't need a third meal. You're just working the digestive tract. Not necessary. It can get all it needs on 2 meals. But don't jump into it right away if you're not used to it. You may have to experiment. I did for a while, back and forth, 3 meals, 2 meals. The same thing with meat eating. I may go over a minute here. When I became a new Adventist, December 1st, 73, Adventists were telling me, oh, you really should try vegetarianism. And I said, no, real men eat meat. I want to kill and eat. And they said, wait, well, you should just try it. I said, okay. January 1st, my New Year's resolution, here's what I'm going to do to prove that you're wrong. I'm going to eat meat every other day. And by the end of January, when you see how sick I am, I'm going to say, see, I'm going back to eating meat. So January 1st, meat every other day. By the end of January, the experiment was going very wrong. I felt better. Going, how's that possible? I'm only eating meat every other day. I said, okay, we're going to continue this experiment. Next month, February, I'm only going to eat meat twice a week. Now I know I'm going to get sick. So I already had a wrong mental attitude. That alone could have made me sick without God intervening. I knew I was going to get sick, but God said, no, you're not. I got bigger plans for you. You need to leave that carcass alone. So I ate meat twice a week, and at the end of February, I couldn't deny it. I was feeling better. I said, this is crazy. I know how to put an end to this. I'm only going to eat meat once a week in March. I know I'll get sick, and I'll tell everybody, look how horrible I look. I've got to have my meat. But by the end of March, it was a done deal. I became a vegetarian. By April 1st, I was no fool. I went to a plant-based diet. However, it still took me another year to get rid of the dairy products because of all the threatenings I was getting that I was going to become deficient and anemic, pernicious anemia, and all of these other diseases. I'm going, oh, I don't know. But I just kept reading the Spirit Prophecy, and I said, nope. We're going to get rid of the dairy products. And I did, despite what they were trying to tell me. And that was in the late 70s when I went vegan. And I'm not deficient in anything. I'll show you some of my blood panels tomorrow on how I turned out. My immune system is so high, they can't measure it. It went off the chart. I'll show you that tomorrow. It's amazing. It's not because I'm special. It's because God's plan is special. And it works. So I'm going to close now with the Bible text from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. First Thessalonians chapter 5 and verses 23 and 24. May the God of peace be with you and help you live for him. We pray that your whole being, your body, your mind, your spirit, be kept blameless until Jesus comes. God is faithful. He will help you as he promised. You know, the fact that you're here, you've already given God permission. You came here. You gave God permission. Now he's ready to move. The angels, yeah, guys, we talk about you. I know you're there. The angels are coming around and they're saying, all right, we're ready to go. Is he going to take the step so we can carry him, or is he going to stand still? Is she not going to move? But if you start moving, those angels come swooping in. And that's when the miracles start happening. You don't do miracles, but you go to the one who does. And you go to him by doing what he asked you to do. And if you do that, you get to watch the miracles. Not only will you notice, but I'll guarantee your friends and neighbors will also notice. What's happened to you? What's different about you? I think I want to, what is it that you did? I want that too. It'll work. It'll work. Tomorrow, we're going to have a lecture, and then we're going to have a lunch, and then we're going to have the rest of the lecture. And in the back, we've got some recipes for you for the potluck to make, 6 pages worth. What I want you to do is pick one that you would like. And Jason, could you stand up, Jason? He's going to take a list of who's making what so that we only have lentil loaf for tomorrow, okay? We want a variety. So Jason's going to write down what you're making. And once we got somebody making millet burgers, we say, okay, millet burgers are covered. What else would you like to make? So we have a nice variety. I want you to try these different foods and see what you think of them. You may have to adjust the recipes a little bit once you get home. I do that when I get a recipe. I like a little more of this or a little less of that in my recipe. But don't be taking a little more cheese and a little more Tabasco sauce or something like that. You can't change it that much. But you can change maybe some salt amount or how many basil you put in it, or a little less or more, whatever you like to do. But we're going to try these recipes, and I ask that you make them as they're written. Don't doctor them up so that people may not know what they taste like. But when they taste something that's close, they say, well, I know what I'd like to put in this to make it a little, I would put tomatoes in, or I would put, chopped carrots or something, but find something nice there. So those recipes are right there at the back, and Jason will guide you through as to what to make so that you won't all make the same thing. So, are we clear on that? Everything good? All right, so it's tomorrow morning. Those who would like to stay for question and answers, feel free to do that, but I'll let Jason take care of you out there in front of the recipes, and let's have a closing prayer. Father in heaven, wow, so much information, Lord, and I know it's a lot, but we're going to ask you for grace to help us to get through this, because we're going to get ready to go through the time of trouble, and we have to be ready. We have to be ready to help those who aren't ready. And so by your grace, we want to do everything we can, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to be the men and women that you need to have, to give the loud cry and bring your church together. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow morning.